Hello, kings and queens, and everyone in between. My name is JJ, and welcome to Skincraft. Curious if your skin tightening treatment is secretly slimming your face? Let's uncover the truth about radiofrequency skin tightening treatments and how they may affect facial fat. Hi, my name is JJ, and if you're new to my channel, I'm a medical aesthetics consultant with almost 20 years in the industry.
Okay.
My main priority during that time was to sit down one-on-one with my patients, assess their skincare goals, and determine which energy-based device would be best suited for their needs. I also provide in-depth consults on facial balancing via facial fillers as well as biostimulators, and creating curated medically assisted weight loss protocols for my patients, as well as plastic surgery, while making sure to incorporate health and wellness protocols. And now I'm bringing all of this knowledge to you. So let's jump into today's topic. Radiofrequency skin tightening has been gaining popularity for the last decade, with heavy-hitting companies such as InMode, the creators of Morpheus 8 and Forma, as well as Solta Medical, the creators of Thermage. And don't leave out Venus with Venus Legacy. But at what point do these treatments become problematic? With a plethora of patients coming forward stating that their in-office treatments created facial fat loss problems, as well as some consumers coming forward and stating that their in-home devices created the same. So where's the line between facial skin tightening and unwanted facial fat loss? Let's uncover how radiofrequency interacts with the face and the facial fat pads. Radiofrequency energy, when emitted into the skin, essentially heats up the epidermis as well as the dermis. This is to help upregulate collagen synthesis as well as elastin formation. With increased collagen, you can expect firmer skin, and with increased elastin production, you can expect tighter skin. Both proteins work synergistically to improve the appearance of the skin. However, when excessive amounts of heat is introduced to the skin for prolonged amounts of time, this can cause a negative effect. It can create hot spots within the skin or even facial fat loss. You might be asking yourself, why would any company create a device that would melt fat? Well, the answer is simple. These devices were also created for the body. They have a wide array of application for the body, such as debulking certain areas as well as circumference reduction. And they can even improve cellulite to some degree. However, this approach was not practical when taking the body application and utilizing it on the face, which prompted the industry to quickly curate handpieces for the face. But it's not that simple. There are multiple forms of radiofrequency. The two most common forms in the medical aesthetics industry is monopolar radiofrequency and bipolar radiofrequency. Which one is safer for the face? Let's uncover the difference. Monopolar RF typically uses a single electrode to emit the radiofrequency energy. This allows it to travel deeper within the skin, superseding the dermal layers in certain applications. Although monopolar radiofrequency can be used on the face, it's typically best suited for body for circumference reduction and helping to mitigate unwanted fat. Platforms that are best known for using monopolar radiofrequency is Morpheus 8 as well as Exion. It's important to remember that radiofrequency-assisted microneedling platforms such as Morpheus 8 and Exion offer the treatment provider a wide variety of depths to choose from. And depth is of paramount importance when you're trying to introduce radiofrequency into the skin. Within my tenure in this industry, I've seen very successful treatments be carried out on the face with Morpheus 8 as well as Exion. However, in the wrong hands, these treatments can cause catastrophic effects such as facial fat loss. When performed correctly, you can expect skin tightening, lifting, toning, as well as firming. Often referred to as a safer alternative to monopolar radiofrequency is bipolar radiofrequency. Bipolar radiofrequency is typically best suited for bulk heating devices such as Venus Legacy. There's no microneedling here. Your treatment provider will typically glide the handpiece over a specific area where you want to see tightening and overall rejuvenation. This is done at a very specific energy wavelength as well as making sure not to overheat the area. Bipolar radiofrequency typically treats more superficially. Oftentimes, clinical data will show you that energy emitted from a bipolar radiofrequency handpiece typically doesn't supersede the dermal layer, so it doesn't get into the subcutaneous fat layer. However, when used improperly or at too high of a setting for too long, you may experience facial fat loss. The key takeaway here is making sure you're with an entrusted provider that knows what they're doing. Make sure to request personalized before and afters from your treatment provider so you can make an educated decision based on what you'd like to do. So if radiofrequency skin tighten has the potential to cause facial fat loss, how hot is too hot? Understanding the temperature threshold is crucial to a safe outcome with radiofrequency. In order for radiofrequency to trigger your heat shock proteins within the dermis, typically want to elevate the internal temperature of your skin to about 42 degrees Celsius. You will then want to ensure that that temperature is being held for a minimum of 3 minutes. This will ensure that your heat shock proteins go into effect, as well as making sure to stimulate your existing fibroblast so that they can continue to spout out new collagen seedlings as well as elastin. It is important to remember that when undergoing these treatments, anytime you induct new collagen or elastin, it does take a full 6 to 9 months for them to grow into their adulthood to show you what they can do. So although some patients do get instantaneous tightening and contraction from a radiofrequency treatment, that's typically due to water loss, as well as the heat causing your elastin fibers to shrink wrap. But the long-term results are best seen at 6 to 9 months post a series of treatments. So what temperature do you need to steer clear from to ensure that your treatment is safe? Some clinical trials have shown that mid to high 40 degrees Celsius range can begin to start to break down subcutaneous fat. However, this is also depth dependent, so there are many variables to consider. Again, it's extremely important to vet these professionals and make sure they're properly credentialed to be performing said treatments. So we've talked about energy and how hot is too hot, but what about depth? How deep is too deep? Depth matters, and typically monopolar radiofrequency platforms don't always have the best track record when being able to control the depth of the energy and how far it radiates within the skin. Certainly, if your treatment provider is using a radiofrequency assisted microneedling device, they can control the depth of the microneedling, but they can't control the depth of the radiofrequency if it happens to travel deeper than intended. But there are proper protocols that can be observed by your treatment provider. All patients are different, and their goals are no exception. But typically, a good rule of thumb is you don't want to supersede 3 millimeters deep within the skin when using a radiofrequency-assisted microneedling device. Bipolar radiofrequency, on the other hand, has a fixed depth. That's not to say that energy can't go deeper than intended, but it's much easier to control and typically yields a positive outcome. So we've talked about in-clinic devices, but where does all this information land with at-home devices? Can you reach professional results from the comfort of your own home? Let's evaluate the efficacy of at-home radiofrequency treatments. There are a slew of at-home radiofrequency devices on the market today. It seems like every time I turn around, there's a new company popping up with the latest radiofrequency technology. Now, it's important to note that 9 out of 10 at-home radiofrequency devices are going to be using bipolar technology. And on some occasions, they may be using multipolar technology. There are many trusted brands on the market today that will typically back up their product with clinical data. It's important to notate the difference between independently derived data or company-funded results, but nonetheless, they have to go through rigorous testing and get approved by the FDA. Devices such as Tripolar and NUA, as well as Current Body. Now, these devices will typically claim that they get your skin up to 42 degrees Celsius, which is the temperature you want to achieve to initiate collagen synthesis. With consistent use, these at-home devices can be quite helpful. However, it's important to notate that you're only getting a fraction of the energy that you get in clinic, so don't expect results right away. So we've talked about the pros and cons of in-clinic platforms as well as at-home devices. But how can we maximize our results in and out of the clinic? When in clinic, always make sure to do your homework. This can sometimes be easier said than done, but I find that if you can't get enough ample data to back the provider up, it's best to seek someone else. When using at-home devices, ensure they're FDA approved. I would also look to make sure that the company is being transparent about their clinical data and studies. If these studies aren't easy to find, there typically aren't any. With in-clinic radiofrequency treatments as well as at-home treatments, it's important to remember, make sure to adhere to strict protocol and instruction. No excessive amounts of heat, and adhere to the protocol and don't supersede treatment times. Slow and steady wins the race. With all of this knowledge, you now have all of the tools that you need to be able to make an educated decision on what's best for your skin, as well as how to ensure a safe treatment. But enough from me, I want to hear from you. Please let our community know if you've had success with at-home devices, and what in-clinic treatments did you get amazing results from. Let us know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, give a thumbs up and consider subscribing.